having great contracts in place, having full-time team members versus contractors, having long-term recurring revenue, having a great leadership team. That's how you build a good company anyway.
My intentions. In my heart, I always have to be clear on my intentions. When I'm doing this, when I want to support this, when I want to share this, when I want to create this.
I think most entrepreneurs are the chaos and they create the chaos and they think their team is underperforming. And I'm like, no. The team rises to the level of the performance of the leader. Welcome back, everybody. I have such an amazing treat for you today. Dan, I'm so excited to have you on the show and to dig into a great conversation about kind of a unique position that you've carved out for yourself in the market. Dan Martell, guys, he's here. We're going to talk about buying companies, selling companies, private jets, how you know if you're a fit to buy, sell, exit, the whole deal. You became known, Dan, in your market initially because you had 3 technology exits in a 10-year period. And now I know over the next year, you're probably acquiring another 16 companies. So I would love to just, first of all, welcome you to the show. So happy that you're here.
It's an honor. Yeah, no, I mean, I always like to call my shot and set my intention. And I am here to give you 110%. I would love for this to be one of the best and most valuable episodes that any of your listeners have had. So I will give you the crazy stories and the valuable tactics and all that fun stuff. So you guide and we'll see what comes out.
I love it. I love it. Well, here's the thing, right? So you're a guy, Dan, that has like a crazy story and a crazy background of where you started, what you went through in your life, your comeback, and then ultimately making it to the position that you're in today. And I think that's really important to start there because there's so many people that are talented enough to do the kinds of things that you're doing, but they don't see themselves as either being worthy or ready or capable or, I don't have enough experience, I'm not big enough, I'm, all of those things. And you are like the comeback kid. So can you start with a little bit of like the story and then the comeback and then the building up to where you are and what happened today? Because I want people to understand that you weren't born flying a private jet around to your speaking engagements. You had some bumps in the road. You had some setbacks, some personal things that are now a big part of your philanthropy and your mission. Like, let's talk about that.
Yeah, I mean, I'll be honest with you, Kelly. I have to pinch myself every day. It makes no sense to me. It does now. I say that because it's easy for me to say that, but for a long time, it didn't make sense. How does somebody that grew up in addiction, right? Drug addict, got diagnosed at age 11, second oldest of 4. Mom was an alcoholic. Dad was in sales. How do I go from that to, now living a life where, I fly around on my private plane and I, have a huge audience on social media and I have a best-selling book and I get to play life at a level that I think few get to experience. And it's why people kind of get turned on to my content. My approach to the integrated life is quite different. And it all came from a lot of pain. I mean, I believe that people that have gone the lowest have the opportunity to go the highest. And that's my story. I mean, it was, they're starting at nothing and then starting in a hole. By the time I ended up in prison the second time at 16, nobody thought Dan Martell was going to do anything, like, let alone not kill himself. I mean, it was just, it got bad. I mean, high-speed chase almost took my life. Luckily, God was looking out. I didn't have any faith back then. I kind of turned to God as almost like, what else do I got to lose?
Yeah.
And luckily through a process, after I ended up in adult prison at 16, due to the severity of my crime and kind of my upbringing, I met a prison guard named Brian, and, he sat me down one day and essentially expressed his belief in who I was and could be, even at a point when I didn't believe in myself at all. I mean, I honestly used to feel guilty for even taking space.
Yeah.
So, and just like how much pain I was creating for my family. Like I was very sensitive and aware of it.
Yes.
So I just, oftentimes I just thought maybe it'd be better if I wasn't alive.
Yeah,
So,
and I mean, who would think a prison guard was the person in your life that sat you down and had that belief in you? And then kind of how did that spark where you went from there? How did that change the trajectory of your life?
well, I went from somebody that didn't believe I deserved to breathe the air I was breathing to somebody that obviously he saw something.
Hmm.
And I thought, well,
Hmm.
Brian's seen some, maybe he's right.
Yeah.
And then a few good decisions after that. A few months later, I got released to a therapeutic community, this place called Portage. And I did 11 months. I mean, I did 11 months in therapy. That's why like people see me today and I'm like, you don't understand the amount of work I've put into this, like put into
Yeah.
me. I mean, I've been
Yeah.
doing entrepreneurship for 25 years. I've got 25 years of doing this. It's actually not impressive. I think if
Hmm.
anybody should, learn from my journey, it's really just that I woke up every day to be better. And that's always been the case
Yeah.
ever since I was 17. So I did 11 months, worked on my self-worth, my confidence, obviously my addiction, rebuilt the trust that I'd lost in my family,
Hmm.
because of all the bad decisions I had
Sure.
made over the years. And then it was at the end of that program, I was helping Rick, the maintenance guy, clean out one of the cabins. It was built on an old church camp.
Hmm.
And in one of the rooms, there was this old 486 computer, it's 97, and a yellow book on Java programming sitting next to it. And for whatever reason, the book spoke to me. I opened it up, I followed chapter one, and within 20 minutes, I got the computer to say hello world. And yeah, it
Wow.
was kind of nuts. It almost became my new addiction. I became obsessed with writing
Yeah.
code. I think it's because I grew up with so much, uncertainty, that there was just
Yeah.
something about the predictable nature of
Yeah.
software development that I
Yeah.
could get in the zone. My ADHD,
Yeah.
it's just like everything went to the side. And, I got out. This is 97. I had two passions: botany, for maybe obvious reasons. I was into plants,
Hmm.
cannabis and whatnot. And
I love it.
yeah, no, this is
Okay.
real. I used to have big farms. So there was that and programming. My dad, you know,
Yeah.
funny enough, he said you could always have a garden as a hobby, but I think you should lean into this computer thing. So that was 97, 98. Started building software companies
Wow.
then. And first two were complete failures. I mean, I went from, 17 to 21. It took me 7 years to finally find
Yeah.
traction because I was a software programmer. I wasn't a business person. I was an
Right.
introvert. I didn't know how to
Right.
sell. I could write code, but I didn't want to talk to anybody.
Yeah.
And it took a business coach named Bob to
Hmm.
to show me the business side. I was 23. I
Yeah.
read this book called The E-Myth. It transformed my
Yeah.
life. Hired Bob. He was an E-Myth certified coach, and within our first year, we did almost $1 million in revenue.
Yeah.
And that was
Wow.
the first business where I found some traction and ended up becoming a multimillionaire 4 years later when we exited the company. So
Yeah. No, that's
it's
amazing. And I
crazy.
appreciate you saying that it was 7 years, of struggle and two companies failing before it like clicked. And then obviously you weren't starting from zero, you were starting from the wisdom of experience, right? And then moved into your first exit because it's insane, right? Like I came from corporate. So I was like learned in like the school of hard knocks, like literally going door to door selling, like, build a $50 million portfolio. But people come into the online space now that haven't experienced like the scrappy hustle of like business building, like the old school way. And all they see online is, the overnight success and, all the marketing and blah, blah, blah. And I think there's a really severe psychological impact that I think is very sad and it upsets me. And I talk about it on the show all the time. Like the reality of what actual successful entrepreneurs go through and the time that it takes and the journey of what that actually looks like is really misrepresented online, not by anyone's fault, because people are doing their job, they're marketing, they're talking about the highlights, all of those things. But I think a lot of people have such a misconception of the journey and such a misconception of everything that everyone goes through on the path to that success.
Yeah, Kelly, I've never met anybody that's had success that behind the scenes there were
Exactly.
years of effort. One of my
100%.
favorite new artists today is this young artist named Tate McRae. I don't know if you know who Tate McRae
Hmm.
is, but she's awesome. I think she'll be the next Britney Spears. If you see her
Yeah.
content or music, her
Yeah.
Instagram or TikTok, she's just got the it factor.
Yeah.
What I love is that she continues to share her old stuff Okay. She
Yeah.
shares 9 years old vocal training, 10 years old
Yeah.
dance class, 11 years old, theater. Like she documents today. I don't know how she'll do, maybe she's 20, but anybody that sees, like, she just did SNL, she just did the Billboard Music Awards, they
That's
go, oh,
incredible.
wow, she's blowing up out of nowhere.
Yeah.
She's like,
And she's like, wait a second.
excuse me, 10 years later. And that is always the case. I think if people
Absolutely.
are willing to dedicate a decade, like Tate McRae, that they will eventually show up. Like, even this
Yeah.
other great musician, Oliver Anthony, he wrote the song Richmond, North
I
Carolina.
know.
Perfect.
Oh my
So,
gosh.
like, he didn't just wake up and was like, I know how to play a guitar, I know how to write a song, I know how to sing a song. It was years of frustration
Yes.
and challenges and setbacks and
Yeah.
agony. And
Yeah.
then finally, one day, as a 30-some-year-old man, he says,
Exactly.
enough's enough. I'm going to turn my life over to
That's
God.
it.
Okay. And
That's
this
it.
is the big thing. I stopped making it about myself and I started making it about other people. And all of a
Yeah.
sudden, my life changed. And a TikTok video of him playing this song, boom, number one Billboard song in the history, broke every record
I know.
by an artist that wasn't signed by a label.
It's amazing. And I think he actually, and I might be wrong, correct me if I'm wrong, but I think he actually went on Joe Rogan and pulled out the Bible and was literally, and I was like, praise Jesus.
Passages.
I'm like, Jesus is coming into the market and people are like speaking it now. And like, I feel like that was such a moment to be like, wake up, guys, like bring God back into the center of our life. Like it was so awesome to see him. And I think what's crazy about that, to your point of all the years of like suffering and all the things that went on for him behind the scenes, and then he had his moment, is like, you hear the pain in his voice, like in the song and everything that he's writing. But it's, everything you're saying is so true. I do have a question I want to ask you, Dan, that I think is important for the listeners, because you talked a lot in your story about like kind of your lack of self-worth and how you were feeling early in your life, right?
Yeah.
And I think self-worth truly dictates like your belief that not only are you capable, but you are worthy, and that you are chosen purposefully to do the work that you're meant to do in the world. I think is such a huge part. It's like, yes, skills and talent and hard work and all of those things, but like the belief. Did you find that your self-worth grew as you said you woke up and you were like, I'm just going to try to do better each day? Like, talk to me about how did you change that part? Because I think that's something people get really, really stuck on, is like, even, and I'm talking about successful people. We have a lot of really successful multi-7-figure business owners listening to this show that they would love to go to 8 or 9 figures, but they're still not totally there, right?
There's a lot, there's been phases, right? I mean, I think when I got out of rehab, I leaned on a few things. One, I was sober, and that was such a monumental thing to finally introduce to my life, and to stay sober, that I could lean on that from a self-worth or at least confidence point of view. When I got out of rehab, they made us work on this thing called the transition plan, which was essentially a plan of, what are you going to do with your free time? Are you going to work? Because I had to go back to high school and graduate from high school, and eventually, got a job in the software side.
Yeah.
I think when I look at my self-worth today, and I believe a lot of stuff around this. One, we never get a penny more than we think we deserve. So people that want more, the reason you don't have more is because you don't fight for more. You don't believe you deserve more. You believe that asking for more is selfish. You have a lot of beliefs, right? So the way I overcome that is I use a few things. One, my intentions. In my heart, I always have to be clear on my intentions. When I'm doing this, when I want to support this, when I want to share this, when I want to create this, what are the intentions? And I know no matter what criticism comes at me, on my heart, I can stand there with my faith and go like, my intentions are right. They're pure. They're aligned, whether somebody understands that or not.
A lot of business owners don't, it's going back to belief. They don't even know that alternative path that you just described is possible, right? Because their only experience and their only vision is into what they've done and where they are today.
It's because every day I do my non-negotiables. I wake up, I work out, I eat healthy, I show up, I do the work I say I'm going to do the night before. I plan my week on Sunday for the week. I never, like today would be a great example. Every Tuesday I do this thing called the Founders Hike, where I invite anybody that wants to fly into a place I live, Kelowna, BC. Okay. We've had people fly in from across Europe from Florida to here, which is a massive distance.
Yeah.
And today I didn't see that my assistant put in the calendar, but there were 2 people that flew in for the hike. And my son, Noah, got sick this morning. So I needed to watch him because our house manager didn't show up till 8 and the hike's at 6:30. And my wife wanted to go to CrossFit. So I was like, cool, I can do my hike later. No big deal. I totally forgot that these guys were there. When I noticed it, I felt so bad because I made a commitment to them that I had to find somebody on the hike to message them to meet me at the coffee shop. When my wife got back, I went and I had coffee with them.
Yeah.
Because of my integrity. So it's like anytime we make commitments to other people, we don't do things because we don't feel like it. My feelings don't dictate my actions, my decisions to do things. I like when things are hard because I know in doing that in face of it being hard, I'm building my character, I'm building my confidence. And then I would say the third thing is my faith. Like as you mentioned, why do we not bring God into our business world? Why do we like, oh, okay, on Sundays, I'm grateful and appreciated. You created me in your image. And then in the boardroom, we're like, no, that doesn't play a part. No. Before this podcast, before I share anything, before I get on the stage, I always ask God to use me to create as much value as I can for other people. Period. Full stop. Like there's no if, ands, or but. So because I know I'm consistent in my commitments, my intentions are good, and I'm always, asking for support from the man who told me I could, man, I've got unlimited confidence today, right? Like when I make a decision, I make it with certainty because why wouldn't I?
Yeah. I love that.
That wasn't the case.
Yeah,
that
so
was what I
powerful.
had to build. Yes. And it was steps and steps and steps. I started at the bottom and just for 25 years, I've been working towards it.
I love that. And I love how you said about keeping the commitments in private. I say all the time, you build confidence by keeping commitments that you make to yourself, right? And it's exactly what you're sharing there, Dan. It's like you showed yourself that you could show up, that you could commit, that you could follow through. And when you commit and follow through, you get results, and then you build and you just keep building.
So good. Yes, you nailed it. This is like, I hope everybody's taking notes because this is what it's about. The business tactical stuff we can get into, but if we can't get our beliefs, our mindset, our worldviews right, the doing of it becomes very hard.
Yeah, I totally agree. Now I want to move on to another belief that I think is absolutely huge. And one of the things we talk about a lot on the show is like, whether you're in a place mentally where you're considering selling your business or not, building something to sell, knowing that there's only 3 destinations for a business, you're going to shut it down and get nothing for it. You're going to pass it on to your family, which they don't want it, or you're going to exit it, right? And you're going to create generational wealth with it. Now, this is something you've done over and over again. So kind of walk me through for you some of the biggest mindset shifts and kind of the preparation things that you think that a business owner, doesn't matter whether they want to sell in 5 years, they want to sell in 15 years, or they're sitting here saying, I'm never going to sell my baby. And you're like, yes, you are at some point. Otherwise you shut it down and you don't get anything. So what do you want to share about that?
Yeah, I can go super nerdy on the very tactical level. I can go belief side. I'll go middle, and then we can go where you'd like.
Perfect.
So I believe that every business has value creation and value detractors. Okay. So value creators and value detractors. So what that means is to an external party, to a buyer, certain decisions in your business will be more valuable than others, and certain decisions will actually be less valuable. So for example, in a business, if I have a core business and I add another business that's not even aligned with the core business, then that's a value detractor. If I don't have employment agreements with my team members, that's a value detractor. If I have a bunch of freelancers and no dedicated leadership, that's a value detractor. If I have contracts that are long-term with subscription to customers, that is, service agreements, those are value creators. So I always tell people, step one is, even if you don't want to sell, you should at least go approach somebody that would sell or somebody that has sold in your industry and ask them what they consider valuable. So you at least know, because you're going to wake up whether you want to or not and build the company. 10 years, if you're still building the company, you're still there. It would be nice to know what things you could prioritize that still get you what you want to do in the short term or long term, and also become valuable to a potential acquirer, because a business is an asset, and the asset that we're trying to increase, what we call enterprise value, is the machine of producing some level of consistent cash flow. And, you know, it's just like my brother with his home building company. For a while, he was like, you know, I'm going to build this up and sell it someday. I go, to who? He's like, to somebody.
And
who?
you're like, okay.
Who? Like, tell me, how many home builders do you know that have exited their company? Well, I've never thought of it that way. Probably a fun little internet search
exercise
that you want
to do.
You know what I mean?
Yeah.
And it turns out in Canada, there hadn't been one at the time, but there was 4 in the US. So I was like, hey, KB Homes was one of them. Go find a way to connect with people that were involved in that transaction, so you can understand what volume they were at, what elements they found valuable. Did they care about the raw land development? Did they care that they were putting in their own, you know, road, sewage, all that stuff? Or did they care that they had a sales office where they could predictably acquire customers and turn them into home buyers? What kind of homes were valuable? Like, and all of a sudden, you know, took them maybe 16, 18 months to go on one of those, you know, benchmarking trips, I call them, and came back with a hit list of things that he eventually was going to do. He just changed the priority around them. And now he's built a machine that anybody would want to buy, because it's incredibly productive. It doesn't require his time. He's got a great leadership team in place. And I think that that's like the biggest mindset shift that a lot of operators need to switch to, is how do you become an owner, not an operator? Like, shift your mind. Like, I am an owner in all my companies. I buy a software company. I put a CEO in place. It's now part of the portfolio. I built a new company recently. First hire, an operator. I'm not going to operate the business. I don't want to operate the business. I know how to do it. I'm really good at it. No, I'm going to hire somebody else, run the business. I'm going to build top down. And I get to show up as the talent, as the advisor, as the board member. That is awesome. That's a fun role to play in, where you can go to a meeting, add value, walk away with no work product, and know that it's adding to your personal net worth and to your empire and to your wealth. Game on all day long.
For sure. For sure. And I love every single thing that you mentioned there. Having great contracts in place, having full-time team members versus contractors, having long-term recurring revenue, having a great leadership team. Every single one of those things that you mentioned as it relates to selling, that's how you build a good company anyway, right? So these aren't two separate things. It's like, build a great company, build it the right way. You may reverse the priorities a little bit, but it's really about building a company that someone would want to acquire, but also that you would want to own long-term, right?
And that is, you
your
nailed
point.
it. You nailed it, Kelly.
Yeah.
I people always ask me, like, my new media company, are you ever going to exit it? And my rule is always, I build a company that could get acquired, because a company that could get acquired is a great company to run. I build it to be sold, because a company that could be sold is a great company to run. They're not separate. They're the same thing. And what you're trying to do is, you know, do your SWOT analysis every year, strength or year, SWOT, weakness, threats, and opportunities. Pay down some institutional debt, build your standard operating procedures, your operation manual, and build out and develop your team and create a talent acquisition, talent development. Like, I love the game of business. And I just think that if people change the way they measure, see, most people measure their business success based on their cash flow or their top line revenue. I would argue you should change it to enterprise value, because your enterprise value, which is the equity value of the business that you own on your personal net worth sheet, is different than your active income. And most people live for active income. I build companies for personal net worth. PNW on the equity side is how you actually create wealth.
No, it's so smart. I love it. And I mean, they always say, you know, first time founders, you build a company up around yourself and you kind of create a jail cell, right? Second time founder, you hire a team and then you build, you know, underneath them, right? So that's what you're talking about there. I love it. I think it's so crucial. And, you know, I think just hearing the conversation from someone who's done it over and over again is so important, right? We've had the conversation on the show multiple times. And my whole thing is like, just build the company the right way and create something that you want to own long term. Because I think that most of what people do in the entrepreneurship world specifically, it's not sustainable long term. And it's not sustainable long term because the role that they're playing is 5 different roles. They are the company, right? Instead of building a company. So is there anything else you want to add to that, just from the standpoint of like, mindset shifts business owners can have in the here and now to kind of set themselves up to start going down that path?
Yeah, the mindset shift is that to believe that it's possible.
Mm-hmm.
I'll tell you the amount of
Mm-hmm.
entrepreneurs that I coach. I work with, small business owners every
Yeah.
day, and they'll say, "Well, I can't. This is my secret sauce. Nobody else can do it
Yeah.
like me."
Yeah.
Etc. And I always,
Right.
and it's very simple
Yeah.
belief to bust, right? I
Yeah.
say, "Is there any company bigger than you in your industry that exists?" And they go, "Well, yeah, this
Mm-hmm.
company." Perfect. That company built the system to deliver value. They
Yes.
promised something to the customer, and the person who runs it is not involved in the delivery. Now, you may
Exactly.
not think they're as good as you. That's fine. I will tell you they're better than you because they've built
Right.
something bigger than you that's repeatable, scalable, that doesn't
That's
require the
it.
person running the company to be in it. Whether you judge that as an artist or not, because most of them are, they're like little creator artists,
Yes. Yes.
you will always stay small. Like your
I love
beliefs
it.
shape your view. And if you don't believe that somebody else could do it, it's like if I bought a restaurant today, like most people in their business, they're running the business, somebody quits and then they go run that department.
Yeah.
If I owned a restaurant and the chef quits, I ain't running in the kitchen. I'm going to
Right.
run really quick to find a
Exactly.
recruiter to find me a chef, and I'm going to replace
Yes.
that role. That's what an
Yeah.
owner does.
Yeah.
So I think that shift of A, believing it's possible, B, understanding the skill set required. So most people just don't know how to do that. They don't know how to take a value stream, a process, break it down into different stages, and then try to
Yeah.
backfill, or what I say, buy back your time, so
Yeah.
that you have somebody else that you're still involved in assembling the whole thing, but
Yes.
other people can help you get bandwidth and throughput. And over time, those 5 different people involved in that process, where you were one person in the past, now is the thing that you do that other people value, and you can scale it up. You can go horizontal, you can create pod structures. And I think that's the game. That is actually
Yeah.
what the entrepreneur should be doing, is trying to unlock the constraints, right?
Yeah.
Not
1,000%.
just jumping
Yeah.
in the business because there's a problem.
I think most entrepreneurs are the chaos and they create the chaos and they think their team is underperforming. And I'm like, no, no, no. No, no, no. The team rises to the level of the performance of the leader, right? And it's usually the CEO creating a bottleneck and all this chaos because everything's funneling through them still, which is a question I actually have for you. I want to ask you about that, Dan. So, with the companies that you've exited, at the point that you exited them, were you already completely removed from all aspects of the business, or were you still involved in some capacity where you were playing the role of, for example, like CEO? Like, what was your role in those organizations at the time of exit? I know some people like will stay
They're
on
all,
in some
yeah,
capacity. Like, talk to me about that.
they're all different. Okay. And I will tell
Okay.
you, Kelly, from the beginning of like my 17-year-old all the way to now I'm 43,
Mm-hmm.
I have evolved over the
Mm-hmm.
years. And honestly, because I spend so much time on personal development, personal growth, and whatnot, like
Yeah.
even the Dan of 12 months ago, there's differences.
Yeah.
There's differences.
Yeah.
And the way I tell people, it's not like you're going to be like, oh my God, Dan, you're so different. No, no, no. It's the
Yeah.
best parts get amplified, the bad parts get diminished. Right.
Yes.
And so when I
Yes.
look at when I exited my company Spheric at 28, I ran the whole thing. I had,
Mm-hmm.
a team of almost 30 some people, but 12 of them reported to me. It wasn't
Okay.
sustainable. It was
Yeah.
dumb. I
Sure.
would never build a company that way. It cost me my engagement at the time. I was engaged to a different woman that I'm married to now. She didn't put up with it. I was a horrible friend. I wasn't a good brother, a son. So that really caused me to go through the journey of trying to
Yeah.
find a completely different way to build it. And that's
Yep.
why I wrote Buy Back Your Time. Then in my next company, I kind of overcorrected. Okay. I started
Okay.
angel investing and then creating a lot of wealth through equity ownership
Yeah.
and having other people, obviously CEO of the company. And then when I started my next company, Flowtown, Ethan, I appointed him as CEO. For a long time, my role on paper on LinkedIn was non-employee co-founder, which is a dumb thing Ethan told me. He wanted me to, because we were raising capital and like he
Okay.
needed me involved in the business, but he ran the company.
Okay.
And over
Okay.
time, I eventually took over kind of the distribution side of the business. So a little bit
Okay.
of product, a little bit of marketing, but we had leaders in place. And when we exited, it was run by Ethan. Him and I were co-founders. We each own half the company. And it was fun because I was actually he was like 9 years younger than me. So it was like the first time that I got to actively mentor a younger entrepreneur that I worked with day to day, that then
Yeah.
we created this massive company that had a great financial outcome for investors and for him. And then I did Clarity. And then when I built that one, I was just so passionate about the idea that I wanted to be the CEO, right? I'm a
Mm-hmm.
product person. I'm a software guy. I like product, but immediately hired an executive assistant, hired operations people. So
Mm-hmm.
my day to day looked very much, people, vision, product, money, that kind of
Mm-hmm.
stuff.
Mm-hmm.
And when I exited that company, 0-day earnout. So exited the company the next day, Dan was good, which is a
Okay.
beautiful place to get. Why? Because I built the business so that it could run and grow
Yeah.
without me. Okay. It continues to
Yeah.
grow today. Clarity.fm. The owner still says the numbers keep growing. We built an incredible business.
Okay.
And then all my companies since then, I always start with the leadership at the top.
Mm-hmm.
Because again, when you have no money, this is why first time entrepreneurs, I love the way you visualize it. They create a business around them. It's almost like a
Mm-hmm.
tornado around them and the
Yes.
chaos is inside.
Yeah.
It's
Yeah.
because you're building from the bottom up. I mean, you
Yeah.
don't have anything, you have
Absolutely.
zero
Yeah.
resources. So it's like
Yep.
today, it's me. I wear 17 hats. I have a
Exactly.
customer, I deliver,
Yeah.
I do the invoicing, I make sure the people, the
Yeah.
vendors get purchases, all that stuff, work in progress, all that. And then eventually you unlock resources, aka capital, right? And to me, revenue is resources, time is a resource,
Yeah.
labor is a resource, all these things. But essentially, as you're growing, you're building capacity and you're unlocking
Yeah.
resources. When you have an exit, a lot of people that have wealth, right? Some people might be sitting on 2 or 3, 4, 5 million, and then they want to do another business, but they make the mistake of building it the same way from the bottom up.
Yeah. Yeah.
I
Yeah.
don't. I hire from the top and let the top build down. So all the
Yeah.
companies I've started over the last
Yeah.
8 years, I always
Yeah.
start with the jockey. I always start with the person. It's a who, not how.
Mm-hmm.
I don't doubt we'll figure out the solution because I've just been very good at learning and executing and
Yeah.
growing.
Yeah.
But what I need is somebody to run the day to day,
Yeah.
because that creates bandwidth and that creates leverage and that creates opportunity for me to express my zone of genius. Even though I'm very competent, I can CEO companies.
Yeah.
I think that is what a lot of people that have had success, that have revenue, that have cash in the bank, they keep building bottom up and they got to start building top down.
I could not agree more. And it's been my exact experience. And, I built the coaching and consulting company. It's in year 11 now. And we have a great team. We have a great executive leadership team. But I am still slowly working to get all the way out of the day to day, right? Whereas my other newer businesses, I did exactly what you just said. I hired and I have leaders and I never was in the day to day, right? So it's just a completely different experience end to end. But you breaking that down like that is so powerful, Dan, because a lot of business owners it's going back to belief. They don't even know that alternative path that you just described is possible, right? Because their only experience and their only vision is into what they've done and where they are today, right?
Yeah, I
And
mean,
it's really powerful.
people kind of history repeats itself. If they've never been taught a different way of doing it, then that's the
It's
way.
you just
It's the tool they
Yeah,
always know, and that's why even like
100%.
my whole mission right now is to teach entrepreneurs how to build businesses they don't grow to hate, because most of them have
Yes.
just never seen a different way to do it.
Yes.
But that's why I
Yes.
put all my stuff online. I have like all
Yeah.
my content, all my YouTube. It's all like,
Yeah.
I'm going to show just a completely different
Yeah.
mental model for how to build companies that
Yeah.
don't kill you over time. Because that's
Yeah.
unfortunate. Like you said, most businesses actually don't fail because the market's not there. They fail because the entrepreneur decides to shut it down and do something else because it gets hard.
I say that all the time. They gave up hope because they're burnt out. They're just tired, right?
Yep.
Because you can always figure out how to find money. You made a sale once, you can make another sale. But if you don't have the will to keep going because you're so burnt out or you're so exhausted or you just don't like what you've built, that's when you go out of business. Right. So that
100%.
is such a powerful model. And, obviously you have your portfolio of companies, you've done these exits, you are an angel investor, you have these other things going on, but you are also very, very focused on being like super present, super consistent every single day, building brand on social media. So talk to me a little bit about, for you, what your vision is for the role that your online brand plays and what you're building from like a content and social media perspective versus what you're doing with the companies in your portfolio. How are they connected? Are you using your brand to drive those companies? Are you building something separate? Like, talk to me about the interconnectivity of that piece for
It's
you.
one of my favorite conversations. So thank you. Thank you, Kelly. Yes. This is going to be fun. So here, it took me a while to get to this place. And I'll tell you, there's been different people over the years that have spoken to me, and I kind of ignored them, and I kept building. And I'm like, hey, I'm a software guy. Like Gary Vee back in the day. I've known Gary since 2005, like Wine Library days. So watching, Gary talk about his stuff, I would say more recently, Patrick Bet-David's another one, with Valuetainment. More recently, the Hermosis, Alex and Layla are dear friends. And just have a lot of friends that do, online social media stuff. What changed for me is when my book came out. So January 17th, Buy Back Your Time comes out. It becomes a Wall Street Journal bestseller and continues to sell more copy week over week than the previous week. It blew my mind. The part that blew my mind was the impact. I helped people get wealthy. Like, I mean, I'm a software guy. So most people don't know this. SaaS Academy is the largest coaching organization in the world, not software CEOs. In the world. We have 1,000 active clients. This is not low ticket stuff. We have very robust programming. And even that company over the last 6 years that I've built it, and that's where a lot of my initial social media, YouTube content was focused. I did enough to do content marketing, but I didn't prioritize it. Like I wasn't like looking at growth. Literally,
like you were doing
we post Monday. Monday, we publish a YouTube video.
Right.
That's it.
Right. Yeah.
And the book shifted everything for me. And it just had an impact in SaaS Academy, in my acquisition company, Big Band Software, in my angel investments, access to deals. I mean, I just got off stage speaking at the YPO major event during F1 in Vegas because of the book. And I was just like, I would have paid to be in the room to listen. Like, you know what I mean? Like I got to interview Dana White from the UFC. It just like, how is this stuff happening? All that came from the book. And about 5 months ago, I called my creative director, my head of media on the SaaS Academy side. And I said, I've got a vision, and it might sound silly. I'm a 43-year-old man, but I want to go all in. Enough's enough. I want to now make this the primary thing. So this is whatever you want to call it. I mean, the corporate name is Martell Growth Solution, but it's like the Dan Martell brand and every other entity, from my angel investments to my acquisition, my holdco, to all of it is supported. So the way I think about it, Kelly, is very simple. Reach and reputation unlocks everything. To the degree that I have reach and a positive reputation, every possible project, from nonprofit to giving back to at-risk youth, to buying software companies, to writing my next book, to supporting my wife's business, to supporting my friends' businesses, to supporting, all that gets unlocked. Okay. Attention is the new oil. Gary Vee's been talking about it for years. I finally get it. When I look at the time investment. Now, let me tell you what I've done though. Okay. So that was the realization 5 months ago. Since then, September 1st, we signed a lease in the #1 building in our city downtown. We have a studio we built out, 4,000 square feet. People are like, why do you need so much square footage? Because I've decided to literally document everything. So I've been watching.
Yes,
it's perfect. Awesome. So all of that is a byproduct of this.
Yes,
we've been teaching it, and we are backed up probably 7 weeks of content. We're going to start coming out with a weekly vlog. Just honestly, technically on YouTube, we had to figure out like, how do we do it? Where does it get published? It can't go on our core channel because then it messes up the algorithm. So we're doing very high-end entrepreneurial content, entertainment content on the main Dan Martell channel. We've got our short stuff, which is across all channels. We're ramping that up. We're getting 6 million impressions a month. It's crazy.
Wow.
And again, the media stuff we're doing. So we've gone on podcast tours where I've done 13 podcasts in 2 days. So I'll fly into like Scottsdale, Vegas, San Diego last week. Right now, tomorrow I'm landing in Omaha doing a podcast, going to Charleston doing a podcast, going to Dallas speaking, then back in Denver. I mean, I'm taking the level of intensity I've applied to like building software companies to building a media company, because I believe that for the rest of my life, I want to do this. Like, Kelly, I love teaching. I love helping. I love sharing. I love reading to know that I'll, like, whatever I'm reading, I'm going to share with other people. My whole career has been around software, but my real passion is entrepreneurship, and my real passion is on mindset and beliefs. And we're going to build one of the largest and most potent media companies for entrepreneurs. And we're going to build a bunch of stuff around mindset, and we're going to learn and iterate and tweak. And I'm dedicating my life to it.
Yeah. It makes so much sense. It makes so much sense. It's perfect. And I'm so glad I asked the question. How did I?
Nobody's ever asked me. You got
I'm
an
so glad I asked
exclusive.
the question. Well, yeah, I mean, it's so key for people to hear. I wanted them to hear your mindset. I'm not surprised by anything that you just answered, but I wanted the people listening to hear that thought process for you, because it's very interesting to me that I think that most entrepreneurs that are utilizing social media to build their businesses are still operating down on the level of sales transaction, not on the level of brand.
They're not building
Right?
brand. You
They're
nailed
not
it.
building brand. And when you hopped on, you're like, oh, you're almost at episode 1,000. I'm like, yeah, this is long game for me. Like, I'm gonna do this till I'm 80. Like, you know what I mean? Like, it's brand. So I love what you shared about that. And I think the thing that is most important about what you said is, whether it's driving your nonprofit, the companies that you're investing in, getting on the right stages, the
Deal
media that you
flow.
want,
It's
invest,
crazy.
it's all there. And but let me just ask you one more question on that, Dan. For the individuals that are listening to the show today that are like so inspired by you right now, and they're so excited, and they realize like, wow, like I have not been leveraging social media in the way that I could be. Like, you can't do everything all at once. What would be some of the things that you would say to someone that, like, listen, the people that listen to this show, they're posting on social media every day. They're doing stories. They're showing up. We're not talking to people that aren't already using social media, but we're talking about a completely different mindset and different approach when you're describing what you just shared from a brand perspective.
Awesome. I've got some very tactical stuff. Now we'll go we did mindset.
Okay.
I think people want some tactical.
Yeah.
One, don't post the mechanics of what you do, post the mindset behind the mechanics of what you do. So for example, most people in fitness coaching, they talk about the curls and the squats and all that stuff and the meal prep. Not very interesting.
Yeah.
What you want to post is the beliefs, the mindset, the challenges, the frictions, the frustrations, like, the setbacks. Like, that's what humanizes you. And what I've learned is over time is when you create trust with your audience, you create a transaction. Information is not interesting. Trust and belief in what you do will create a transaction. People will consume a ton of how-to stuff, which is great. But when you can show the emotions, the beliefs, the mindset behind it, that's where you create that's where you even create opportunity for viral content. Like, nothing goes viral because like, oh, here's the financial document of a transaction. It's like, no, let me tell you what I was thinking in that moment when I was scared to give up my baby. That's what people want to consume. Then I would say, just find a rhythm that works, that grows your account. So what I've learned is what you focus on expands. Most people don't focus on their followers. They don't look at the engagement. I had a client like, oh, I'm not getting more followers. How many followers you had in the last week? I don't know. Well, I know you don't know because you're not looking at it. And if people don't focus on the things they want to expand, it will not grow. So create better content, look at the numbers. I learned a long time ago, it came from the book Effective Executive. If you just measure something, it will get better by 20% just by measuring it.
Yeah.
Just going to measure. So let's start by measuring. And then I would say the third thing is, and this is a big one that fascinates me, have conversations with your followers. There's people that follow you every day. Okay. We had thousands. I think we added like 15,000 followers on Instagram in last 27 days or something like that. Okay. To the degree that I can, we're messaging every follower. We're saying, hello, thanks for the follow. Are you here for this or that? And we try to find opportunities that help them. I call that creating your personal economy. It doesn't matter if you only get 25 new followers a week. Think about that, 25 new people, 52 weeks in a row, and you're having chats with them. Most people build these audiences and never talk to them. They wait until they leave a public comment. Do you know how small the amount of people they're going to leave a public comment on your content is? 5% out of 100%. Whereas if you message every new follower, 100% of people at least receive your message. And then I would say 70% reply. And you could figure out if what you've got is helpful to them. If not, you can refer them to somebody else. So if you create content that is more emotional, belief, mindset, worldviews, controversial topics around your industry that you think is helpful, and then you actually measure a metric like followers or engagements or whatever, and you focus on that every week, and then you also message the people on a daily basis that follow you, you will transform your relationship with social media, because the day that your social media turns into a primary revenue generator, then you'll do what everybody then does, is you'll invest in it.
Yeah.
Like in a massive way. You'll literally redeploy Facebook ads, redeploy outbound marketing, redeploy going to events. And you're gonna say, you know what? Like, this is what's funny. I have a publisher or a PR person that from my book. Okay. So I wrote a book and they have a PR team. And they're like, Dan, we can get you on TV. We can do it. I go, you gotta understand, for me to get on a plane and go to New York, the ROI is not there. And she's like, how do you figure? I go, I would rather take that time, produce content, put it out to the world. My impressions, my reach is bigger than that TV show.
Yeah.
Kelly, this podcast, you know this. This podcast has more reach than most online or TV shows. Okay.
Yes.
So I would rather invest in this. I would rather invest in my own content and building my brand. And because you can correlate that. So once I literally started tracking that and growing it, and then seeing SaaS Academy grew 30%, no net new dollar spent, just reputation and reach. Deal flow up 50%, reputation and reach. Access to opportunities, inbound deals, investments up 50%, reputation and reach. The ROI of what I invested in a studio and my time, I can't think of a better place to invest it.
Yeah, no, I couldn't agree more. And to your point about the conversation, so many people, they don't talk to their audience at all. And then they say, I don't understand how to connect. I don't know what they want. I don't know it. I'm like, if you're having any level of interaction with the people coming to your own account, you know exactly what they want. You know exactly what they need. You ask them one question and they'll send you back a paragraph this long, right? And tell you everything. So this is gold. It's so powerful what you're sharing. And like, I thank you for just like peeling it back in such a meaningful. Okay, last question. And then I want you to tell everybody about all your stuff and where to go and what to do, all of that. I have no idea. Have you been studying what is happening with X? And are you planning to do any marketing on that channel? Do you already do marketing on that channel? Are you planning on doing marketing on that channel? I feel like there's going to be a big shift there. And we've saw this already, right, with mainstream media and some competition that's happening there. What is your perspective on that? I'm just interested to know.
Yeah, I mean, I've been on X, Twitter since 2000. I mean, literally, if you look at I might have been account number 4,000. Like I was on super early because, you know, most people forget, but like Jack Dorsey and those guys were building a podcast platform. Twitter came as a byproduct of building that. And I was in the Valley. So, you know, we were sharing our meals and where we were at in real time. It was a weird thing, but it was fun. It was like a fun little tool that we all used. Obviously post Elon's acquisition, so here's what I say. On my personal brand, I use X and we publish every day, and we have a strategy to grow that audience. We don't run paid acquisition. My personal brand, I don't do paid acquisition. I am an organic person. I like the challenge of it. I love trying to figure out how to get, you know, what kind of topics go viral, double down on that, go to the studio, you know, like we're in this very creative mode. So we don't do that there. On my other companies, our directors of marketing and our essentially our media buyers, they decide. So to the degree that a channel is efficient, they're going to they're not opposed to using Snapchat, X, TikTok. We experiment on all of them. I have not seen X produce low cost lead generation for my B2B companies yet. But you can see a trend line. So as long as that trend line keeps going, I think there's a potential there. And the truth is they got smart people on the team that are going to figure it out. And if it works, it's going to work. And if it doesn't, it's not something I'm actively looking at week over week.
Yeah. Interesting. Yeah. I feel like they have smart people on the job. I think there's going to be some things happening there. So I'm always interested in people.
I mean, Elon is just smart about what is the product and how do we create value. I mean, even TikTok was like, hey, our values creators. You know, I think YouTube as a monopoly has been, they've kind of acted a little less friendly with creators. Whereas, you know, now that we've got X and they're showing you how to monetize your audience and they're creating products for that, they're going to pull back market share from the Patreons and other platforms. And I mean, even with Clarity. So Clarity is a marketplace for entrepreneurs to get advice over the phone. It was essentially, if LinkedIn had a call button, like my big bet with that company was that as social media continues to create micro celebrities or influencers, that those influencers would have audience that would want to pay for their time, their advice. Unfortunately, what happened was the payment structure that I thought that would be the winner never materialized, meaning that we think a lot of people pay for advice, but it's actually a very small percentage of the population.
That's interesting.
Yeah, it is. Because like when you think
because
of like,
in our world, you feel like everyone
we think everybody
right?
does.
In our
everybody's
world,
in a mastermind,
like,
everybody's a coach, everybody buys books.
But we forget that we're like,
no, you know, Juanita, the cleaning lady, probably hasn't read a business book ever. And that's that's actually the norm. Out of 100 entrepreneurs, business owners that own a corporation, it's like 10 to 15% that are actually like growth minded. And of those 10 to 15%, what percent actually pay anything meaningful? Let's just say go to an event a year for their business. That's a rare thing, right? They might go to a trade show for their industry, but for them to go to a personal development event, very rare. So unfortunately, that market didn't materialize the way I thought, but the Patreon subscription, access to premium content, that definitely, you know, we're seeing that with Subversion and or media, like the paid content route is producing people that have financial income from creating premium content. And I think Twitter's building the tool set to unlock that. And with the ad network they're creating, the people that want to get more distribution and reach can pay for it. And they have a way to monetize, which creates the engine. And it's, as long as they set up the incentives and the rewards properly, it'll be awesome.
It's going to be interesting. Yeah. So going into 2024, what's your final kind of parting words of advice for all of our entrepreneurs listening into the show today? And then obviously we want to invite everyone to get their copy.
I love that you have a copy.
Time, which you all must read. But before we talk about that, final parting words of advice, 2024.
It's very simple. I discovered a long time ago that there's two things every person is on earth to do. Okay. It doesn't matter where you live or your faith or anything. One is to wake up every day and become your 10.0 version of yourself. Call it your greatest self. Call it the person that God created you in his image. Another way to I like to think about it is become the person you needed most in your darkest days. Okay. So if we wake up every day with the intention, people go, Dan, why do you keep doing what you're doing? Because I know my intention is that I'm going to wake up to be better so I can be of service to people and honor my creator. So that's one. While we're doing that, step two is to share that person with the world. That world could be your kids. That world could be your church. It could be your CrossFit gym. It could be your team. It could be your city. It could be the internet with social media. I just think that if every person in 2024 decides to make a conscious effort to be the best version of themselves and share that process and success path with other people, that they will live a more fulfilled life. And that is probably the most important message that I think I have.
I love that so much. Thank you. For everybody listening, obviously, if you haven't done this, I'm pretty sure most people already went on their phones as they were listening and followed you on Instagram. What's your handle? I don't have it off the top of my head.
Dan Martell, 2 L's of Martell on Instagram, and Dan Martell on all platforms. And then buybackyyourtime.com for my book. It's as I mentioned, best-selling book. It'll absolutely transform your entrepreneurial life. And if it supports you in any way, just message me on Instagram and let me know how it helped. I'd love to hear from you.
I mean, this was a masterclass, and I really appreciate you taking the time to do it, Dan, and just unbelievable value in so many different areas that are so relevant and meaningful for this audience. So thank you. Thanks for being here.
It's an honor. Thanks for having me.
All right, everybody. Thanks for tuning into the show, and we will see you next week. Thank you so much for listening to the Kelly Roach Show. If you enjoyed this episode, do me 2 solids. Subscribe to the show so you never miss an episode, and leave us a review so other people can find the life-changing content that we share here. We're on our way to #1, and we need your help getting there. Thanks so much for being a part of the community and for tuning into the show each and every week.